Now that we've gone through all the troubleshooting techniques for Report Studio and for Framework Manager, let's take a look at a case study to troubleshoot a report from start to finish, starting in Report Studio and working our way back into the model. In this case study, we're going to revisit some of the items we've seen throughout this presentation. This is just an end-to-end troubleshooting scenario to give you some tips and techniques on how to troubleshoot your reports as well as your models. Now here we have a simple list report and users are complaining for performance. And if we run the report, we'll see that the hourglass spins and spins, and this report indeed takes several minutes to return. So the first thing we'll do is start to actually remove items from the report and see if we can isolate which items are causing us grief. We can start with the total sales targeted month, which we believe is a calculation, and there's a few ways we can identify if this is a calculation or not. We could view the SQL and see if a calculation shows up in the generated SQL, or we can right click on the item in the metadata tree and use the lineage feature. And if we click on the technical view, we'll see that indeed the expression for this item is actually a calculation using the @ clause. So we'll make a mental note of this particular item. So let's remove this from the report and we'll try running it again. And we'll see that the performance is still slow. We expect to see instantaneous results, but we're not getting that at this point. So we'll undo that change and we'll remove last name and first name, which come from the employee query subject, and see if there's any benefit to removing those. And again, the report takes a long time to return. So now what we'll do is remove year and month from the query and see if there's any benefits to that. Now we get instantaneous results. So we've identified one object that may be causing us grief. We'll undo that. We'll also remove first name, last name, and the calculation from the report and run it again. And see that we do in fact get results fairly quickly, but the numbers are incredibly inflated. So we're going to need to investigate the time dimension and also take a look at the employee dimension as well as the calculation in the sales target query subject. So we'll undo these changes and put the report back to the way it was. But before we go into the model, let's take a look at the generated SQL. And as we see here, we have a select statement followed by a second select statement, followed by a third select statement, and then finally by a fourth select statement. So there's a lot of split SQL occurring here. So we can make these items known to the modeler, who can then go into the model and investigate these items. So let's go into Framework Manager. And as a modeler, the first thing we'll do is start off at the query objects that are being used by the report authors. In this case, these shortcuts that are being presented in the studios. And we know that they're taking items from the time dimension, from products, from employee, and from sales target. So we can use these as a starting point and go to the target. And the target is in the business view. And if we double click on the business view and look at the diagram, we'll see that the relationships are defined at this layer. So this is a good starting point. Now the first item that we looked at was the calculation, and we know that the @ clause is not supported by our database and likely was the incorrect function to use in the first place. So we're going to use the for clause instead here. So that's one item that we're going to fix. The other item that we notice is split SQL. So to investigate that, we'll look to see where these objects are coming from. Employee, for example, is taking items from the database view from the employee dimension. So we'll navigate down to that layer, and we'll see that the item is actually taken from a data source in the content store called Go Sales DB2 Go, or GSDB2 Go. Whereas the other items are going against a data source called GSDB2. So if we investigate those data sources, we'll in fact see that two separate data sources do exist, and this is going to cause local processing in our queries when using items from the two separate data sources that are joined together in the model. So as seen before, what we can do is simply rename this to be the same as the above data source, GSDB2, and now we're going against the same data source that's defined in Cognos Connection. And that resolves that issue for local processing. So two local processing issues have been resolved: the calculation and the employee. Now, another item that we saw was that the time dimension created these inflated numbers, and performance was also terrible. So if we go and look at this particular query subject and go to the Determinants tab, we'll notice that no determinants are specified. However, there is a relationship between the time dimension and the sales target at the month level, and the month level is not the lowest level in this query subject. So what we need to do is add determinants for this particular query subject. We'll need a unique determinant for the lowest level. We'll call this the day level. And then we'll add several more determinants, one for each level in this particular hierarchy. And we'll move them up above the day determinant. And the first one will be the month determinant, and that will be grouped by. We want to group all the items that are going to be aggregated at the month level so that we don't double count the months for every day in that month. We'll add the month key as the key and these two items as an attribute. Then we'll go up to the next level, create a quarter determinant, which will also be a group by, and that will contain the quarter key as the key and quarter as an attribute, and then the last one will be the year determinant. That will simply have the year as the year key. So now the determinants have been set. Now let's republish this model and see what the performance is like. We'll simply replace the existing package. And then back in Report Studio, we'll just reconnect to that package to ensure that we're going against the latest metadata. The report specification is valid, and let's run this report and see what the performance is like. And the results are instantaneous, and the numbers look correct. And if we look at the generated SQL, we'll notice that we have one select statement. So by removing items from the report to isolate certain issues, we saw that we can make notes on each of the items that we believe are causing problems. We then provide this information to the modeler, and he investigates to see what can be fixed in the model. So as seen here, by providing proper determinants for the time dimension, correcting the data source connections in the model, and removing a non-supported function in the model, all helped to improve performance. Here are some additional report performance and design resources that you can take advantage of. Now, the links are either going to be made available to you through the presentation which will accompany this video, or these links will be made available in the description below the video. let's take a look at the key points that we discussed in this presentation. The first main one was looking at data access strategies and ensuring you're using the right technology and the right tool for your report requirements. This can help improve performance greatly. We also looked at model performance and design in Framework Manager and some key tips on how to troubleshoot for performance. We also looked at report performance and design in Report Studio and looked at some common issues that our customers run into when authoring their reports. We also took a quick look at a case study and looked at troubleshooting a problemed report right from Report Studio back into the model. With the knowledge you've gained in this presentation, and if you have poorly performing reports, you may want to go back and review your data access strategies. Are you using the right tool for the job? Do you have proper data design? And do you have proper performance tuning in place? You may also want to look at your models and ensure that they have proper design, and test the query subjects for speed and accuracy. You may want to look at your reports and ensure that they follow best practices. Make sure that you're using proper naming conventions to make troubleshooting easier, and ensure that the reports are tuned accordingly. And if everything is okay and there's still problems with performance, you may want to verify your network, your installation, your configuration, and so on. So here are some more resources that you may want to take advantage of. Now, besides support, you may want to contact the Accelerated Value Program, or AVP, and they have several offerings to help assist you in your BI project. There's also another offering for reporting assistance, and of course there's the IBM Support Portal and Developer Works for additional resources. There's the general link, the Business Analytics Proven Practices documentation link, and of course IBM Training. Again, these links will be made available either in the presentation that accompanies this video or in the description below.